and even good afternoon, everyone. Uh, we are back again on a fourth episode of Power of Wellbeing. As you know, Power of Wellbeing is a powerful program designed for people, for teenagers, for small kids, for family, for parents to know the power of well-being in our life. How well-being can impact our life and people and society around. Hold the power of holistic approach. And then second, we had financial planning. How little kids at home with this pocket money can manage finances, save money, spend money, buy their essential things, their games or something. Managing finance for kids. And in third episode, we took you to Himalayas. We took you trekking, amazing, beautiful locations, and how that can impact our well-being. Going out, spending time with Ijat Yagnan. She is from India Heights, and it was really amazing and helpful for a lot of audience. Today we have a very interesting topic. I think this is a very powerful, connected with your well-being, not only well-being, but well-being of your finance, your relation, your life, uh, in every aspects of life, starting from our childhood to our old age or golden age. We need emotional intelligence in life. So how we need it, how we use it, how skilled we are in it, we actually don't know. We never came to this term of understanding emotional intelligence in our daily life and behavior. So today, the topic is very powerful, helpful for everyone, and I would now like to introduce our renowned speaker, who is master of the subject, and I would like to introduce Aniruddha Ganguly. He'll be taking us through emotional intelligence chapter. Let me introduce Aniruddha Ganguly. He is the founder of EU Matter Consulting and a certified professional coach with clients in India and abroad. And he's certified in various psychometric assessment instruments. And he helps in companies with their organization design, leadership, development, cultural transformations, business process improvements, and cost optimization. Very good. He also advises business families on family governance and succession and mentoring startups to scale up. That's really amazing. And he brings the unique combination of experience in leading large businesses and large functions like human resources. And in his 38 year of corporate track record, he was executive director heading group HR, group audit, and group corporate communication in GMR. Associate chief operating officer in Wipro BPO, and then country manager for services business in Alstom Transmission and Distribution. Alstom T&D it is called. And he's an electronics engineer and MBA in finance. Very passionate about helping individual families and firms to become a better version of themselves. So he is master of transformations through emotional intelligence. So dear audience, parents, here's your time to interact and listen to the emotional intelligence master, Aniruddha Ganguly. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Raji, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon to everyone here on this call. So we are talking about emotional intelligence. There are two words in it, emotional and intelligence. It has been oft repeated, people talk about it, people have an idea about it. But what I would attempt to do here for all of you is to demystify emotional intelligence and take you to the fundamentals of this entire concept and the history of it, and then the significance of it, and what we can do about it. So, what is intelligence? According to Oxford Dictionary, it is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. Is as simple as that. So that's intelligence. But human beings have had the urge always to measure everything. So there was this urge to measure intelligence also. So through that process came the term intelligence quotient. So there was a French psychologist, Alfred Binet, sometime in the earlier 20th century, who designed an intelligence test. That was grabbed by a German psychologist, William Stern, in 1911. And he brought about an algorithm by which one could represent intelligence by a single score. Now, you can imagine that such a complex subject being dwindled down into a single number. And that was not the end of measuring intelligence. H. Goddard, an American, sometime in the early 20th century again, he grabbed this and he propounded this across the world. He was very enthusiastic about this, and he believed that it described an inherited mental capacity that was fixed and measurable. However, these had undesirable consequences of categorizing children as intelligent or dumb. Huge controversy continued, but IQ remains a prevalent measure of intelligence. Over time, with all kinds of research having been done, it was found that this was not the only measure of human capacity through all kinds of research that was done in the future. So in this context, something important happened. A gentleman called Howard Gardner propounded the idea of multiple intelligences through a book in 1983. Now that's interesting. What he said was that people are endowed, everybody is endowed with different kinds of intelligences. He started with 7 types of intelligences, and then it was extended to 8 intelligences. And I will talk to you about these 8 intelligences. The first one is called logical mathematical intelligence. Generally, you will find science and commerce students and lawyers, perhaps, with strong competence in logical mathematical intelligence. And we are reminded of persons like Ramanujan, Einstein, who must have been endowed with this kind of intelligence greatly. Now, this does not mean that these people are not endowed with other kind of intelligences. The second one is visual spatial intelligence. You will find sculptors, painters, photographers endowed with this kind of intelligence. And one would think about Michelangelo or Raja Ravi Verma, the famous painter, or Raghu Rai, the famous photographer, to have been specially endowed with this kind of intelligence. Third one is linguistic intelligence. Writers, poets, speakers, they are endowed with this linguistic intelligence. And you would think of maybe J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter author, or Leo Tolstoy, or Tagore, or even Shashi Tharoor, extremely endowed with linguistic intelligence. The fourth one would be musical intelligence. Musicians and singers, and even some dancers, have great ability with musical intelligence. So Beethoven, A.R. Rahman, in modern times, Sunidhi Chauhan, the Beatles in older times, these people have been particularly endowed with musical intelligence. The fifth one is bodily kinesthetic intelligence. So sportspersons, dancers, gymnasts are endowed with this kind of intelligence. People like Birju Maharaj, the famous Kathak dancer, P.V. Sindhu, the badminton champion, or Deepa Karmakar, the famous Indian gymnast, would be definitely endowed with this kind of intelligence. The sixth one is naturalistic intelligence, where you'll find that with gardeners, with forest rangers, I would imagine that Jane Goodall, who spent her lifetime in researching chimpanzees in Tanzania, or Salim Ali, the famous ornithologist, or say Valmik Thapar, the famous naturalist, Indian naturalist. These people must have been endowed with very strong naturalistic intelligence. The seventh one is interpersonal intelligence. People who can connect with people very easily, like politicians and business leaders, actors. I think of Atal Bihari Vajpayee or even Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr., Warren Buffett, Rajinikanth. They have this innate ability to connect with people. The last one is intrapersonal intelligence, where people have the ability to delve into their inner strength and express themselves. People like Mahatma Gandhi or Helen Keller, who was hearing impaired, who was visually impaired, but she went on to become a famous author, activist, speaker. So these are the 8 different kinds of intelligence, and everyone has some bit of it, some more, some less. Now, logical mathematical intelligence, one of these 8 intelligences, is the basis for IQ. Just one of these intelligences is the basis for IQ. While interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligences are the basis for emotional intelligence or EQ. Now, what is emotion? It can be equated with feeling deriving from one's own circumstances, moods, or relationship with others. Emotions are neither good nor bad. It's the behavior we choose to perform that serve us or stop us. So emotions can actually propel us forward. Emotion can stop us, and emotion can also take us back. Why is emotion important? As I said, no emotion is good or bad, it is contextual. Emotion drives human behavior. Emotion helps us to survive and thrive. Emotion motivates us to take action. Emotion helps us to take decisions. Emotion allows other people to understand us. Emotion allows us to understand other people. It allows us to love, to be kind, to be inclusive, to be generous, to be tender. What is very interesting is that emotion precedes thought. And we can't help it. Our brain is built like that. So let me tell you why it is so. The seat of emotion in our brain is about 500 million years old. It lives and thrives in a piece of the brain which is called the amygdala. While the rational part of the brain is just about 5 million years old. The seat of rational part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC. Now imagine the amygdala, which has been existing in the brain of animals and then mammals and then human beings, has been there for 500 million years. Whereas the PFC, the prefrontal cortex, which is just behind the forehead, has been in existence for about 5 million years. It has been studied that the amygdala can have a very easy sway over the brain at any point of time, depending on the kind of stimulus that the brain gets. So one has to be careful that while emotion can be a great thing for us, but when uncontrolled, it can also be sometimes an embarrassment. So when we have a situation where there is a very strong stimulus, we react. At that time, the role of the PFC becomes secondary. The amygdala is actually taking control. Whereas when we give an opportunity for the prefrontal cortex to play its role, then a stimulus would result in thinking, would result in a decision, and then would result in a response rather than a reaction. So amygdala and PFC create different ways of response. Overly active amygdala can hijack the PFC, rational thinking, and impair our decision making. Now, human brain or human response is not just related to the neuroscience. There is more to the human mind. And the human mind is not just the brain. There is significantly more complex phenomena which is going on in the human mind. Now we'll come to the next question, is that of putting the two words together. We spoke about what intelligence was. We spoke about what emotion was. Now we'll talk about how it makes sense to us when we join these two words together and call a term called emotional intelligence. This was a term created by two researchers, Peter Salovey and John Mayer in 1990. And as many of you know, it was popularized by Daniel Goleman in his 1996 book of the same name. Warren Bennis, a pioneer of contemporary field of leadership studies, had said, EQ is much more powerful than IQ in determining who emerges as a leader. IQ is a threshold competence. It's a base component everybody should be having. You need it, but it doesn't make you a star. Emotional intelligence can. That's what Warren Bennis said. Extensive research has taken place in this field, and further elaboration has resulted in social plus emotional intelligence comprising of 4 buckets or 4 facets, each of which can be developed through professional coaching. Now, what are these 4 components of emotional intelligence? The first one is awareness of self, which has the 4 components to it: emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment, and personal power. Now think of a person who has no idea of swimming, and this person goes to the deep end of the pool and jumps into the pool. That's a lack of awareness of self. Awareness of others is a second component of emotional intelligence, which is expressed through empathy, situational awareness, service orientation. You will notice that when you have a strong awareness of others, intuitively you can feel what the other person is thinking or feeling. That happens with all of us, to a lesser degree, to a larger degree, but it does happen. So the stronger this competence is, the better for us. Third one is that of management of self. And there are several components: behavioral self-control, integrity, innovation and creativity, initiative and bias for action, achievement drive, realistic optimism, resilience, stress management, personal agility, intentionality. Now, as you can see these terms and these competencies, you would know that to succeed in life, to succeed in one's career, to succeed in relationships, you would need these competencies. So the last one is management of relationships. And this is expressed through the ability to communicate well, interpersonal effectiveness, powerful influencing skills, conflict management, inspirational leadership, catalyzing change, building bonds, teamwork and collaboration, coaching and mentoring others, building trust. Now, this sounds overwhelming, right? It's too heavy. I have said all this too fast. So excuse me for this, for the limited period of time. This subject of emotional intelligence is a very, very vast subject. A huge amount of research has been done on this, and a huge amount of data has been collected over many, many decades. And it has reached a level of maturity which is verified by facts, by proof. Now, each of these 26 competencies can be examined in an individual through a psychometric assessment by a coach certified in this assessment instrument, and EI can improve. Amygdala can be regulated. PFC can be developed because of neuroplasticity of the brain. The brain can actually rewire itself. There is a capacity of the brain to rewire itself through coaching, through training, through practice. And this process leads you to conscious competence of managing yourself, managing others, managing relationships, and so on and so forth, to the extent that you can gain unconscious competence in emotional intelligence. Now, what happens with low or high emotional intelligence? So, I want to share with you a very famous experiment. It is called the Stanford Marshmallow experiment, which was done in 1972. And this experiment had 32 children of the age group of 3.5 to 5.5, average age of 4 years. And these 32 children were put in rooms, separate rooms, and each one was shown a plate of marshmallow, one piece of marshmallow, another plate of 2 marshmallows. And the child was told that, by the researcher, that I need to walk out of the room for 15 minutes. But during this time, if you wait for me to come back, then you get the 2 marshmallow plate. But if you can't wait and take a bite on a marshmallow, then you just get 1 marshmallow. So the researcher goes out, the experiment gets done, and the outcome of the experiment is that some children couldn't resist the temptation of having a bite of the marshmallow before the 15 minutes was over. And there were a group of other children who actually waited the 15 minutes for the researcher to come back. And the children were given the plate with 2 marshmallows. Now, what is interesting is that 10 years hence, the parents of these 32 children were contacted. And what was found was something very remarkable, that these children who had resisted the temptation tended to have a better educational attainment, better body mass index, and other life measures. So this is a matter to think about. Restraint, self-control can actually lead to a better life. I am reminded of 2 instances of fiction. You talk about Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein was portrayed in the book as a brilliant scientist, and he created a monster by joining body parts of other human beings. But at the end, he had no control of the monster, and the monster completely devastated his personal life. And we can think of Jurassic Park. Brilliant scientists, I'm sure all of them had very, very high IQ. And what did they create? They created a Jurassic Park of which they had little control. This is part of fiction. I'll tell you a few more instances of fiction before I get into some real life examples. In Hollywood, a masterpiece of a movie was Forrest Gump, starred by Tom Hanks. Now, Forrest Gump was portrayed as a low IQ person, but he was very successful in his own measure in life because of his high EQ. Another example, Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt movie, As Good as It Gets. Now, Jack Nicholson as Melvin was a person who had impossible issues in relationship building. But then the movie shows how he changes and becomes a better person. Daniel Goleman said, out of control emotions make smart people stupid. Now let me get to real life. 2006 Football World Cup. France is playing Italy. What happens in that game. Football World Cup final. France is hot favorite. Towards the end of the game, Zidane headbutts captain of the team. He is shown red card. He walks out of the field. Imagine the impact on the other players in the French team. The match goes into extra time, and then through penalty shootout, Italy wins the World Cup. One moment changed the fate of the game. If Zidane had not done the headbutt, what would have happened? How often have you seen teachers in school or college who are hated or loved? They're all brilliant, smart people, very knowledgeable people. You see the same thing with corporate leaders. Some are loved and some are hated. They're all smart people. Why so? So, it is not true that topping the class is a guarantee for a successful career or happy personal life. It needs something more. We do have some really brilliant people in the world who are not in touch with their own emotions or the emotions of others, and who may be lacking some skills in how to manage themselves or manage the relationship with others. And the impact? They often feel blocked and defeated. Emotional intelligence is a life skill to get ahead in life. It also helps a person remain healthy and be happy in friendships, partnerships, marriage, and parenting. I'll give you one more real life example from my own life. About 6 years back, this was a moment maybe didn't last for more than maybe a minute, but it has stayed in my mind all this long. I was given a very large responsibility of heading a function in my company. And I was making my first presentation in that role to the board. 10 minutes through that presentation, where about 20 people were there. Many of my peers, the entire board members were there. 10 minutes into the presentation, one of my colleagues made a remark. He said that, this presentation has got numbers and trends and graphs and all that stuff. It doesn't tell us the story. It's a very bad presentation. There was pin drop silence. People were looking at me to respond. Anger was boiling up inside me because I knew that I had created with my team a great presentation. I was convinced about it. And here is this guy who is making this remark. But then I just contained myself. Time was just ticking away and I was just holding myself back. And then one of the senior most directors said, I haven't seen a better presentation than this before. Aniruddha, please continue. Now think about it. If I had reacted, what would have happened? Okay, how do we improve emotional intelligence? Everyone has got significantly good emotional intelligence, but we all have the urge to improve on ourselves. We all have the urge to work on ourselves to become better versions of ourselves. So the short answer to this is observe, listen, reflect, act. Observe, listen, reflect, act. The long answer? Keenly observe your emotions and moods in the moment. Keenly observe your emotions and moods in the moment. Try to sense the emotions and moods of others in the moment. Be keen observers. Be keen listeners. Third, think before you speak or act in the moment. Learn when to allow emotions to take over with some intentionality. Learn when to allow emotion to take over with some intentionality. I'll give an example. Suppose there's an earthquake. You're not going to try to do some logical thinking. You're not going to do some, analysis. You will just pick up your bags and rush out of the house. That's intentionality. You allow your emotion to take over. You allow the emotion of fear to take over with some intentionality. Fifth, seek opportunities to work in teams, with teams, because this gives you the experience of working with other people. Learn from your experience. We will make mistakes. We always make mistakes, but we need to learn from those mistakes. We need to be proud of all the good things that we have done. As a daily routine, switch off all devices and maintain silence or meditate to give rest to your mind. This is important. In today's world of social media, this everything is always on and everything is continuously chattering away, and we don't see much of emotional intelligence in social media, really. And in the midst of that, it is good to sometimes cut off and just be with yourself, spend time with yourself. 8, exercise. Exercise triggers neurotransmitters and chemicals to make the brain behave. And finally, practice, 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 all the above. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ganguly. It was really very informative, and I hope audience will definitely like it. I'm ready to take questions if any audience, they have questions to Mr. Aniruddha Ganguly. For the time being, what I was thinking, because there is a lot uh, to learn and understand. It is not, I don't think so, half an hour, 45 minutes will really give so much of practical things and they can learn. But how, I just wanted to ask how small kids can acquire and how parents can help them acquire emotional intelligence, how they can acquire it, and what is the role of parents in teaching them emotional intelligence.
A good question. Recently I was watching a video on on unrelated subject, and this guy was saying that he went to the room of his little child, and he was shocked to see the child dirtying the wall by doing some drawing on the wall. He got very angry, and he told his son that don't be stupid and don't be childish. I don't want you to do this again. The next day he comes to the room and he sees the son turning and looking at him and actually again dirtying the wall, a sign of defiance. Now he gets into thinking, well, what do I do? So the third day he changes his behavior and he said that what I did I think was not right. So he goes back to the room and he was sure that he would see the same behavior, and he tells his son, grown-up boys don't do this, and he walks out. And the next day when he goes there, he actually sees his son not doing any of that, because the son wants to be a grown-up boy. So the role of the parent is very important in improving emotional intelligence of children, being supportive, not being overly critical, explaining things to the child rather than scolding the child, and also inculcating values in the child. This is very important. Inculcating the value of modesty, of humility, inculcating in the child the value of honest integrity, inculcating the value in the child of being courageous, being bold. Many of these values are very important for parents to inculcate in the child. And especially again, I mentioned about social media and the current environment that we have, which is evolving rapidly. Children are growing in that situation. It's a real challenge, and it's important for parents to be watchful of their own behavior and the way they communicate with their children.
So parents, kids at a small age, they watch their parents and they learn emotions and habits and values from the parents. They grab from them. So it is important for parents to, show more better emotional intelligence. So they also grab it. Now, second thing I wanted to ask you. Now, kids when they grow up a little bit, how they you can advise them to apply in their goal setting in their life. Could be they set the goal to achieve get better marks and achieve they set the goals for their career that they want to go for engineering, they want to go for arts, and they want to go for anything what they decide. How this can help, emotional intelligence can help them setting their goals.
First of all, let me give you a description of the current context. And the current context is happy, is a good context, and also it has its own worries. Um, Recently, I saw in the newspaper that Lady Shriram College has come out with its cutoff marks, and the cutoff marks are 100% for admission into Lady Shriram College. And I was just asking myself, what have we come to now? Now, the other thing that is happening is that there is this tremendous competition. There are children with so many children competing for getting great marks, getting admission into IIT, wanting to get admission into medical college and stuff like that. And I see that this competition is so overwhelming that it stresses out the parents first, and then it stresses out the children. My only submission here is that just by securing admission in engineering college or a medical college does not end the story of life. There is a much more to life than just getting admission to engineering college or medical college.
Yes.
So, and that life, that part of life, one has to be prepared for as well. And perhaps significant attention is required to be given to young boys and girls to fortify themselves, to prepare themselves for a life after school. Many of these children are very well prepared. There are many of the children I've seen are very mature at very young age. They can handle pressure. They can do well in academics, and they can also do with relationships. But there are many other children who need help, and they don't have adequate guidance, and they get lost in the competition. And once they get admission in these colleges, they suddenly feel that the pressure is down, and unintended consequence is seen in terms of various things. I don't want to talk about many of these things, but there are huge issues which happen. One of the things which I have noticed in a very broad way is that overly emphasized focus on academic excellence should be moderated by the ability to handle social interactions, in the sense that a person, a boy or a girl, by all means should focus on, should do well in studies, but should also think of being able to be skillful in social interactions. And that's very, very crucial to succeed in life. It's not just the marks, but it is also the ability to deal with oneself and deal with others, the emotional intelligence part that makes somebody successful in life as well as in career.
Very important. When we small kids, We grab emotional intelligence in the process from parents, then youth, definitely we learn to apply. And as you rightly said, this is not emotional intelligence is not only for one goal setting or achieving kind of exams and good results, you know, getting into best colleges. But this is a lifelong process. At every age, you have different kind of emotional challenges, different kind of situations. I think youth, when they enter into the life circle, that's where they have more burden on their life because they are exposed to the life battle and they have more intelligence and emotional challenges. That's where the entire gamut of emotional intelligence, how you learn it and how you practice this level lies. Any advice for youth battling their life in a battleground and how they can use this weapon?
Every person is unique. My view is that every person is unique, and every person's context is unique. So it's very difficult to give any general advice, and I would not want to give advice. I would like to give suggestions, perhaps.
Yeah,
Um, so suggestions would be that it is important to develop oneself on a 360-degree basis. Um, Academic excellence is extremely important. What is also important is to see how I am performing in terms of the kind of relationships that I'm building. Who am I associating with? What kind of relationship I'm building, not only with my friends, but with my relatives, with my parents, with my brothers, with my sisters. And I gauge myself against those parameters as well and see, am I good at these things? Am I good at these relationships? I may be great. I may be 98th percentile in academics, but am I 98th percentile in my relationship with my friends, with my relatives, with my parents, with my brothers, sisters? Am I also 98th percentile in terms of my communication skills, in terms of my ability to handle conflict, in terms of building trust with other people? Am I being truthful? Am I being authentic? So those are things that I need to rate myself and evaluate myself against. And that is what would make a whole person. A person can end his career as a deputy CEO and not a CEO, but he can end his career as a supremely happy person.
that's great. That's really amazing. I was coming to the context that emotional intelligence, however, whenever, for anything will be used, how do you advise people or advise or suggest people to focus on well-being and happiness of their own and their families? Target achieving in everything well-being and happiness. So the state of mind is better. That is our main focus when we talk to people about it. We organize programs. So how they can achieve well-being through emotional intelligence.
So the first thing is that don't choke your pipeline with work.
Yeah,
This is very important. Keep some space for you to enjoy the rest of your life. Keep some space for your near and dear ones. Keep some space for developing some hobbies, some interests apart from academics. That is what tests you. It just challenges you in other areas of your life, which will stand you in good stead in future. So don't choke your pipeline with work or with your academics, with your workload, whatever.
thank you, Mr. Ganguly, for a lovely, very informative session, and I hope our audience must have enjoyed and they will look forward it. The video of this program will be definitely uploaded on our Facebook and YouTube page, so you can see the session and also ask questions. Mr. Aniruddha Ganguly will be available for that. And probably if anybody needs any professional help also, EU consulting is there. He professionally guide people for their startups, for their life, career, and family issues, how they can innovate, use emotional intelligence. So thanks a lot, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session. I personally enjoyed a lot, and we definitely see you next Sunday, same time, on the power of well-being with a new topic, and imbibe in your kids, even in parents and people, youth, the power of well-being. So till the time, have a good festival time. Enjoy Navratris and stay safe, very safe, and follow basic hygiene and enjoy and be happy. That's very important. So see you next Sunday. Thank you.